For example, I've seen you on TV a lot in the last couple of years. I know everything you know, or that you tell us, about the Russian situation. I don't have a clue what you think about healthcare. I've never heard it. Yeah. I don't know whether you're for Medicare for all, or improve Obamacare, or get a chicken. I don't know what.
How do we help you get this done? Not how do we put more obstacles in the way? I haven't forgotten about your roof. All of that is important to keeping...
And my pot store.
And what?
And the pot store, the Woods that I own with Woody Harrelson. It's just the biggest problem we had was the government of California.
Bill Maher has clashed with Adam Schiff before, and let's just say the encounters weren't exactly polite. Schiff, a junior United States senator, represents the kind of hardline, woke politics Bill Maher loves to challenge head-on. And if you know Maher, you know he never lets that slide. So whenever these two share a stage, sparks are guaranteed, and the tension is unmistakable. Hit that subscribe button, settle in, and let's dive right into the showdown. Statement from the administration. The president had the constitutional authority to direct the use of military force because he could reasonably determine that such use of force was in the national interest. Maher. That's too vague for you? Schiff. Totally vague. Maher. Okay. Because that's from Obama about Libya. Maher had practically set Schiff up by reading a statement issued by Barack Obama after he sent troops to Libya. When asked whether the statement was too vague, Schiff agreed that it was. What he didn't realize, though, was that the words Maher had just read came from Obama, not Trump. The trap snapped shut instantly. You can practically see the shock flash across Schiff's face the moment the reveal lands. In a single beat, Maher exposes the glaring double standard, leaving Schiff scrambling as the audience realizes exactly what just happened. If you thought that was epic, watch Maher expose Schiff's hypocrisy in the next clip.
If film and TV productions continue to move out of California due to tax incentives in other states, what might the future look for Los Angeles? Is there a risk of it becoming the next Detroit? Well,
but I don't agree with the diagnosis of why the film industry is leaving. They're leaving because they're getting richer incentives in other states and in other countries. And we haven't kept pace with that. So if you want to film in the United Kingdom, you're going to get a tremendous tax break, and our motion picture industry has left the country. If you want to film in New York or Georgia, there are generous tax incentives. If we want to keep the industry here, we're going to have to compete with tax incentives. California has started to do that.
Nope. Hollywood isn't leaving California for fun. It's running from the crushing taxes. Everyone in the industry is complaining about it. This isn't some mystery. Sure, places like Georgia and the UK offer attractive incentives, but the real issue is simple. Filming in California has become ridiculously expensive. In fact, it's gotten so costly that shooting in Europe suddenly looks like a bargain.
Every year, California loses people because they are being driven away by a high-tax, high-regulation state where public services don't reach the standards that they should. That should be a signal that we shouldn't have one favored industry or another. We should have a favored state. California should be competitive.
Before Maher even jumps in, this guy is already challenging Schiff. Let's be honest, California has been bleeding businesses and residents for years because of sky-high taxes and suffocating regulations. Even Maher has blasted that kind of over-regulation countless times. So why on earth did Schiff feel the need to frame the issue that way?
And forgotten about your roof. All of that is important to keeping...
And my pot store.
And what?
And the pot store, the Woods that I own with Woody Harrelson. It's just the biggest problem we had was the government of California.
I imagine your producers are saying, oh God, I can't believe Schiff brought up his roof.
Yeah, I mean, we love it here. We want to live here. You know, the West Coast has the sunshine and the girls all get so tanned. I don't know how I can, but we just gotta make it friendlier. All right.
Yes, California absolutely needs to become friendlier to businesses and residents again. And that responsibility starts at the top with leaders like Gavin Newsom and allies such as Adam Schiff. For years, people have watched costs spiral, while the state's leadership keeps insisting everything is fine. But clearly, something has to give. Housing prices across California have climbed to levels that ordinary families simply cannot afford. At the same time, taxes remain among the highest in the country, putting pressure on homeowners, workers, and businesses alike. Then there's the mountain of regulations that make it painfully difficult to build, expand, or even operate efficiently. When you combine expensive housing, heavy taxes, and suffocating bureaucracy, it's no surprise that companies and residents start looking elsewhere. If California wants to keep its talent, its industries, and its reputation as an economic powerhouse, serious reforms are needed. Lower costs, smarter regulations, and leadership willing to admit that the current system isn't working.
Panel agree with the UK's proposal to impose a social media curfew for kids. How realistic is it to enforce? Bid here one night suggesting I was going to open a place called Bill Maher's Catholic School. Let me finish. Because Catholic schools are popular now, even with people who aren't Catholic. It's the last place you can send your kid to get an old school education. And they just tell the kids, forget about the Jesus stuff. Just, to them, that's okay indoctrination, as opposed to some of the other indoctrination that goes on. And also, the Catholics don't put up with bullshit. They take your phone, you have to learn your P's and Q's and your grammar and all this kind of stuff. And that's what I just don't understand, that parents don't have the whip hand anymore. Not that you should actually use a whip.
It was liberal policymakers and education reformers who first pushed for phones and constant digital access in classrooms, promising it would modernize learning. Instead, many classrooms turned into distraction zones where attention spans collapsed and serious learning took a back seat. Now, the consequences are impossible to ignore. That's why Bill Maher raises a pointed question. Should the United States follow the lead of the United Kingdom and start banning kids from social media until they reach a certain age?
Every movie and TV show that has a teenager in it cannot be mischaracterizing this. And the kids they don't listen to their parents, they turn their back on them, they walk out of the room, things that would just get me shut down when I was a kid. And I think it starts with the phone.
It's a simple question, but one loaded with uncomfortable implications. As Maher presses the issue, you can practically see Adam Schiff shifting uneasily in his chair. Bill Maher doesn't ease up either. He fires off one blunt observation after another about discipline, focus, and what real education is supposed to look like. In his view, schools should be places for learning, not endless scrolling. And the current system has clearly lost its way.
The reason why Joe Biden is going to beat Donald Trump is because at the end of the day, America is going to want a president who is a decent human being. Who doesn't shit on other people, who has some interest in the American people, some interest in something beyond himself.
Now, this happened before the election, when Adam Schiff was absolutely convinced that the Democrats were going to win. Watch as Bill Maher methodically tears that confidence apart, exposing the cracks in that illusion for everyone watching.
Atlantic put out an article last year, and it was called Separating Sports by Sex Doesn't Make Sense. It talked about how we separate sports like the WNBA and just because it's just socialization. This is insane.
I agree.
Okay. That's why people vote for Trump. Because there's stuff like that on the left that people just go, I know Trump's horrible, but separating sports by sex makes perfect sense. And if you think it doesn't, you can't lead the country.
But that's cutting off your nose to spite your face.
Okay. I'm just giving you the answer to the question you're asking all night long. Why do they vote for Donald Trump? It's not always because they like him. No, it's because stuff like that is kookier.
Okay, I'm just giving you the answer to the question you've been asking all night long. Why do they vote for Donald Trump? It's not always because they like him. It's because stuff like that is kookier. And just like a biblical prophecy, Bill Maher's prediction ended up coming to pass. While many voices on the left were confidently predicting victory, Maher took a far more grounded view of the political climate. He warned that frustration was building among ordinary voters, and that ignoring it would come at a cost. In the end, that frustration translated into strong support for Donald Trump at the ballot box. Maher's argument was simple. A lot of Americans felt exhausted by what they saw as political excesses and ideological rigidity. Many voters believed that common sense was being pushed aside in favor of culture wars and partisan talking points. Others felt that debates around science, policy, and everyday issues were becoming increasingly politicized. Whether one agreed with Maher or not, his point was that ignoring these frustrations was risky. When voters feel dismissed or unheard, They eventually respond at the ballot box, and that's exactly what happened. Maher also nudges Adam Schiff to do something many politicians quietly avoid: step outside the friendly media bubble and appear on Fox News. Schiff, however, looks noticeably reluctant, and the reason isn't hard to guess. It's far more comfortable to appear on networks like MSNBC or CNN, where the tone is generally friendlier and the questions tend to be far less confrontational. In those environments, interviews often feel predictable, with hosts who share similar political assumptions and rarely push guests too hard. Maher's point is simple: if you're confident in your arguments, you should be willing to defend them anywhere, even in front of a skeptical audience. That's where the real test happens. Facing tough questions, critical hosts and viewers who may strongly disagree forces politicians to sharpen their reasoning and explain their policies clearly. Maher is essentially calling out what he sees as a comfort zone, one where political figures speak mostly to audiences that already agree with them.